Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the latest Crescendo Way podcast. My name is Adam Brereton. I'm joined by Matt Royland and Michael Holland. And our guest today is the Marine Vice Chairman, Dave McMillan. Dave, thanks very much for joining us. We've been really excited to try and get you on. You have a long storied career at Marine, and there's a lot to discuss. So first of all, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, you are. Have we finished now then?
Yeah, you can go now. Enjoy Barbados.
Now that we're recording, that's it now. Of course. Delighted to come on and have a chat. So yeah, by the way.
Thank you very much. So first of all, we'll lead into Matt.
Right, yeah. I mean, I was interested in as well as in terms of how you first started watching Marine, really, and sort of where that came from, and what it was like going to watch Marine back when you started watching Marine. So just take us on a story, Dave. Take us on a story.
Yeah. Well, I feel as though I've been going since 1894. But anyway, that's no. Well, I used to play badminton at Brompton Avenue, the Methodist Church down there, which obviously is still there on a Saturday morning. Because I wasn't bad actually. I was at that age. I played briefly for Liverpool schools, but my eyesight wasn't the best. Obviously, I've had worn glasses since I was about 10. So never really developed. I didn't really have the dedication to it either in terms of fitness and all the rest of it. So I've been going there a couple of years, and there's just one Saturday. There was a note on the door saying it was called off or postponed or whatever, and thought, well, what shall I do now? So debated whether to jump back on the L3, back to the Sausage Works. For those of you who some older people know where I'm talking about, because we used to live in Lidl then, Sefton Road. But for some reason, I'd seen in the Echo, because they used to have the fixtures in the Echo the night before, and then obviously on the Saturday you had the Pink Echo, where they rushed the results out, and at like 5 o'clock, 5:15, you'd always get a queue of fellas outside the news agents waiting for the van for the results. So see Marine were playing at home. And I knew the ground was in College Road somewhere, so I'd have wandered down. Obviously paid in, and they were playing Formby, I think it was, in the Liverpool Senior Cup. So this is 1979, which was the week after they famously played Blythe in the FA Cup, fourth qualifying round. Drew, I think it was 2 each way. Brought them back to Marine in midweek, which I think was an afternoon kickoff for some reason. I don't know why, because they had lights at that time, and got beat 5-0. So it was probably just as well I didn't go to that one. Not bothered going again. So that was it really. I'd been when I'd been a couple of times, and then I'd remembered that I had been before as a kid. I'd played a couple of schools games there, like schools finals and stuff like that. Not that I was any good at football either, but yeah. Obviously the ground in those days, it was 3-sided then. It had been when the club moved into the Northern Prem, which was that season. The fourth side on Rossett Road was closed, basically to move the pitch over. So while I've been going, it's always been a 3-sided ground. But the turnstiles then used to be on the front on College Road, like old brick turnstile blocks. You can still see the old concrete still there now. So what used to happen, especially the away fans who'd turn up at 1:15 or whatever, where there was nobody on the gate, just all pile in the club, and then just walk around into the ground. So eventually the club cottoned onto that, and that's when they moved the gates to where they are now. But I went to maybe half a dozen home games the first season, Don't think I went to any away games. And then the following season started going regularly at home. And I think the first away game played at Colwyn Bay in the FA Cup, and drew 2 each, 2-0 down, come back in about the last 10 or 15 minutes. Peter Smith scored, and then Malcolm Wagstaff, I think. And I won the replay 4-0 at home, and after that was it then. I started going. I went to maybe half a dozen away games the first season, like places like Witton and some of the closer ones, Witton's Old Ground, which is a supermarket now. And then don't think missed a home game then for about, I don't know, 15 years, something like that. And then regularly home and away, but always started going on the team bus. Yeah, just obviously kept it going. So that's how it all started.
Yeah, you just get sort of hooked into it. In that sort of we can almost split up into almost 2 eras, pre and post committee almost. In that sort of pre-committee area, what were some of your best days, your big memories of some of the sort of the big days? Because I know very little about Marine in that period. So I'm just interested to hear some of your best memories, big days out in that sort of pre-committee era when you were a young whippersnapper.
Yeah, well, I was 14 when I started, I mentioned that before, but I joined the committee briefly in 1996 for about 6 months. And then 2004, basically, joined again. So obviously we'll come on to that later. But so really, I suppose all of as a fan, all of the glory days of like the 80s and the 90s in terms of winning all sorts of cups, 2 trophy semi-finals, 2 back-to-back league titles. Obviously, I started just after the Cheshire League glory days when I think we won three Cheshire Leagues in 6 years, I think. Obviously, then during the MPL when the alliance was formed. But I suppose you look back to the likes of the first trophy run, 1984, when we played. We got to, who did we play? Played a couple. Played the likes of Grantham, beat them away at their old ground, not where they are now. And then Fisher Athletic, got the train down to that, and that was a bit shady to say the least. Apparently,
that's South London, isn't it? Fisher Athletic.
Yeah, Fisher's Surrey Docks.
Sorry, Docks. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously got the train with the players, and the coach, coach transferred across, and it was a bit. There was went in there like something out of EastEnders. There's a fella in the bar in a long leather coat that looked like he got it out of Colditz or something like that. So out of the Second World War, looking a bit moody to say the least. Sat at the bar, and apparently the talk was whenever they needed a new striker and a few quid, they knock off the local post office. That was. I'm sure that wasn't a
nasty rumor. Nasty rumor.
Couldn't possibly comment. But we won there, and I always remember there a goal disallowed with about 5 minutes to go for offside, which should have stood. And it was a really warm welcome before the game, but it was a bit frosty afterwards, to say the least. So that was a fairly good trip home on a train. And then who did we play after that? We beat Telford. Drew 3-3 down at Telford, which is the same ground now, but then was basically an old-fashioned type ground. 3-0 up with 10 minutes to go. had a really good side at the time in the conference. Quite a few Scousers, top quality team. Pulled it back to 3-3. Another 5 minutes we got beat. Brought them back to Marine and basically played them off the park and beat them 2-0. So I've got to say, probably that replay, those are a certain vintage will always remember the second goal. Derek McClatchy. Basically, ball got played across 30 yards out. And it's just one of those ones where you see them where it falls perfectly, where he doesn't even have to check his stride. Comes onto it perfectly, smashes it right foot. Keeper didn't move, rooted to the spot. I was right behind the goal when it literally, if the net hadn't been there, it hit me right. It might have altered my devilish handsome feet. Nearly broke the net. And that was, I couldn't quite believe it because obviously, Telford top side at the time, and then obviously we drew Northwich in the semi-final. I don't know, probably 2,500, 3,000 crowd at the old drill field in the first leg. Again, they were the top conference side at the time. Drew 1-1. McClatchy scored again. There's a photo of me and Dave O'Brien in the non-league annual the following year, taken from the other end with a telephoto lens of me and O'Brien celebrating and Dave Kelly in the back of the net, with hanging off the net. And then I really thought, so this is 4 or 5 years into following Marine, and I really thought we were going to Wembley. One in the away leg, but we blew it really, in a nutshell. And that was the first time I was absolutely gutted. Really, that really hurt. That, I mean, I'd still been going to Liverpool on and off at the time. In the days where you could pitch up on the Cop at 2 o'clock and pay in, and obviously you can't do that now. So, when Marine weren't playing, I'd still go to Liverpool, and even Everton from time to time on the Gladys Street. But it was then, that was at that point, even before that really, it was always Marine and always has been. So that was that trophy run. But then, the following year we won the Liverpool Senior Cup, first trophy we won at Formby. Formby, where the pool is now in Formby, that's where the ground was. So 6 years for a trophy, and then we basically won. We'd win cups regularly after that. Then League Cup, Lancashire Cup, Liverpool Senior Cup, and we must have won. It was unusual we didn't win something in that time. Went close a couple of times in the league, but then obviously won the league the first time, 93, 94, and really the team we had then, if we'd gone up at the time, would have been. I mean, I do think as a pivotal moment in the club's history, what would have happened if we'd have gone in the conference at that time.
I'm assuming that was a ground breaks thing that didn't let us up.
Oh yeah, the ground was ramshackle, to say the least. It was basically fallen to bits, and I hadn't really had a lot done for probably 50 years. I mean, obviously they'd done some stuff on, like, Jubilee Road Shelter had been renewed, but the stand was timber. Basically, in terms of the just cinders, basically, railway sleepers for terrace and all that sort of stuff. So at the time, obviously at the time, after the second championship, I think the decision was taken then, let's invest in the ground. Obviously this before me being on the committee, but let's invest in the ground and let's make sure it doesn't happen again. And really that was a factor in some of the poor performances on the field, sort of early 2000s, because budget-wise, the basically to fund the development, because it was talking 350k overall, which 20 years ago, obviously compared to now, a lot of money. And that had an effect, obviously, on the budget in terms of debt, which obviously that it's only recently that we've actually finally got rid of all of that. That wasn't the reason that we struggled in the last 5 or 10 years. That's obviously a wider debate, but it definitely had an impact at the time. And obviously, when you've been used to basically smashing teams 4 or 5-0 every week, it becomes a bit more of a challenge. But so yeah, I'd say probably for a game, probably that Telford game, I think.
We got an FA Cup run in that period as well, don't we? Because we get bingoed by Shrewsbury about 72-0. Was that in the mid-90s?
All offside. That was that was 95 when actually, obviously we got to the third round in 92, 93, and we'd absolutely demolished Halifax, who were in the old 4th division at the time, and we had such a good team at that time. I knew we were going to win that game, because it's not like now where it's such a massive gap in terms of steps. So battered them like 4-1, and then beat Stafford at home 3-2 in the second round. And obviously then we're all in the club with the Sky cameras and all that, looking for you, Liverpool or whatever, and through Crewe away. Which, without any disrespect to Crewe, when you
it's not a glamour tie, is it, Crewe? It's not a glamour tie
you want. So that was, all of that, but it became commonplace. It was very much is that you get used to that level of success. So, and then after that, obviously won the league twice back to back, and the second one, we lost 2 games all season, and got, I think, 98 points, I think. So certainly that team would have held its own in the conference. But then, probably 95 maybe. That was Shrewsbury, which really we started to struggle a bit. Well, say struggle in terms of mid-table finishes as opposed to being in the top 2 or 3 all the time. So it wasn't really surprised that it was a surprise that we got that far, to be honest. But obviously, whilst you don't think you're going to ship 11, I remember saying to Dave O'Brien, we go down with about 5 minutes to go before half time. I remember saying to him, we had a little bit of a good spell. I said, keep this to 1-0 at half time. We'll do these second half. Anyway, they scored 3 more then before half time. So, anyway, there you go.
There you go. Right, I'll pass over either to Mucky or Adam. I'm not sure which one you would take up about sort of moving into to join the committee and stuff.
Just about Rolly Howard's birthday today, wasn't it? So I was just obviously before our time, just wanted to know what he was like as a manager. How he was as a man, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you can't. You look at his record, and he built probably at least 2, probably 3 great teams for the level. And I think you've only got to look at some of the appearance records of players that played for him, which tells you all you need to know. Peter Smith 960 something, Keith Johnson 600 now. A number of players that probably at most other non-league clubs would hold their appearance records. But I think he people forget that he was probably 35 maybe when he took over in the early 70s, and it wasn't that long prior to that the team was still being picked by the football committee. So basically, the way there's a main football committee. There was a social committee which obviously looked after that. They had a massive social membership which expanded huge in the 70s. And there was a football committee. So what used to happen? Football committee would meet on a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever, and pick the team for the following Saturday. And the players who've been selected get a postcard to say, you've been selected to play Marine versus whoever. Please, please get picked up from the station at whatever time. And that was going on until probably the early to mid 60s. So, the thought of that now is astonishing, really, that's what used to happen. So, I think Harry Boyle came in and was the first sort of modern manager of the club, if you like, in terms of having responsibility for the team. But then obviously Rowley came in. He was Harry Boyle's number 2, and very quickly built the team that would challenge for the Cheshire League. I think, the decisions taken off the field at that time played a big part in that as well, and that the decision was made to build the original club complex, which basically the bit where the Reba Suite is now. That was the original club, built in the late 60s. Been extended a couple of times since then, but the income that derived from, obviously the committee at the time saw that there was a massive market for people to basically, it was acts and that sort of stuff, and the queues round out the door and out the car park apparently at the time. So that laid the foundations obviously for the Cheshire League winning team. Bear in mind, of course, the club were amateur until 1974 officially, but unofficially weren't. Basically, players were getting paid probably as far back in the 50s, but that wasn't uncommon. So, he built that team, then he went on to build another team then in the 80s, and then obviously another one then that wouldn't have put. So all of that around, changes around the game and the laws, all of that. It's an imperceptible sort of change now. That I don't think you look back to teams who you look at teams now of how they prepared and how they look physically and all the rest of it. Compare that to even 10 or 20 years ago, and then you look back to a team. I'm sure you've all seen the old footage of the 70s where you have hard men with names like Chopper. Those were the days, by the way. Chopper Harris. And then even further back than the 50s and the 30s, where you get the likes of Dixie, the 20s, Dixie Dean and all them who'd be on the number 10 bus with the boots in a paper bag, all that sort of stuff. So the game changes all the time. So to do that, to build those teams against the background of changes in the game, but I mean, I always had a good relationship, and still I've got a good relationship with Rowley. He didn't suffer fools gladly, and never has done. In respect of, if you said the wrong thing at the wrong time, he'd let you know about it. I think the other big reason for the success of the club was obviously great relationship with Tommy Culshaw, who was chairman at the time, who effectively let Rowley manage. So yeah, I mean, I still speak to him regularly. He rang me on the day of the Tottenham tie, and a few other times during the cup run. So yeah, he's still going strong, and as you probably all know, still comes to games, still comes and sits in the stand and gives his opinion. So.
It's stuff. Wishing Rolly as well a very happy birthday from all of us as well. So going from there then as well to, first of all, touching on your time now on the committee. So you touched on before you joined in for a brief period of 6 months in the mid-90s. So take us through that, if you would please, Dave, about how you first joined and then joined again later on in the 2000s.
Yeah, initially, I mean, obviously, I'd done sort of bits to help out in terms of bits of sponsorship and stuff like that, in terms of introducing people. And there was a vacancy, I think, in the mid-90s, and I thought, well, maybe it's time that I'd have a go, because Tommy Culshaw had said a few times, well, it's fine having a pop now and again at the players or whatever if you get beaten. Well, basically, if you think you can do better, well, why don't you come on and do it? So I thought, well, all right, then let's have a go. But I was about 30, 31, I think, at the time, and I probably wasn't really ready at the time in terms of the commitments involved, and one or two things that basically I didn't really see eye to eye with Tommy on, and basically thought, well, no, it's probably not for me at the time, but still carried on, obviously doing some various fundraising and all the rest of it. So fast forward then to 2004, and the guy who was on the committee was doing match sponsorships at the time. Well, two. Obviously, one was Morris, and one was Peter Hughes, Simon's dad. Now, the background of all of this is obviously at the time we had, which is what I touched on earlier in terms of the budget at the time from the stand and the ground redevelopment. The team were starting to struggle, and obviously Rowley, I think I think everybody knew that he was coming to the end of his tenure, but nobody really wanted to be. It would have been a brave chairman to sack him, basically, after 30 odd years in charge. So there was a bit of friction, I think, between certain people on the committee wanted him gone, others didn't, and in the end, obviously, what happened is, as you're all aware, is they announced at the start of a particular season that it was to be his last season, which in itself really is, in hindsight, probably isn't the way to go, because effectively everybody knows he's going. And then, in terms of recruiting players, well, am I going to be here next season because there's going to be a new manager, all that sorts of stuff. So there was a bit of a fallout on the committee. And there was a vacancy, obviously, then, and obviously needed somebody to step in and look after the sponsorship side. So I said I'd do it, come on board, obviously looking after the match sponsors and stuff like that, which I've been doing ever since, really. So that was it. I was co-opted on, and then that was obviously confirmed by the committee at the AGM, which is how it works.
So now with you being in vice chairman position, how did that come about in order to rise to this position, and what duties do you take on now?
Just bribery and corruption, basically. Just just brown envelopes. That's it.
That is the way forward.
That is the way forward. Yeah, as I say, as we were saying before, I'm currently filming this from Barbados after embezzling all FA Cup funds. No, it was just obviously the chairman and the vice chairman are elected by the committee, basically as obviously to lead the meetings and so on and so forth. So obviously Brian Lawler had been vice chairman for probably at least 15 years, maybe longer. But really wanted to, I wouldn't say step down, but relinquish some of that responsibility, if you like. So obviously there was a vacancy there, and I don't know, it was just the sort of just happened really. But I think basically because they had nobody else, I suppose you could argue that.
That's often how these things work, isn't it? Well, no one else. All right.
Nobody else was daft enough to put the name forward. So yeah, I can't even remember exactly when it was. I think it was about 2012, but I'm not 100% certain on that. But that was, I mean, obviously during that time, sort of 2012 onwards, started to get more heavily involved in the work on the ground, really, because obviously those of you that know my background's in construction on the QS side. So certainly the floodlights, when we did the current installation, obviously that was heavily involved in that in terms of sorting that out. And all the sort of big schemes that we've done since then. Obviously, I've been heavily involved in all of that, really. So, and all of those are with an eye on ground grading, really, in terms of well, actually, you know, anything we do, you know, there's two reasons behind most of it. Is one, do we need it for ground grading? Two, is it going to bring us any money in? And anything outside of that is, you know, whilst it would be nice to do it, you know, it's difficult to justify spending 50 grand or 7,500 grand, whatever it is, even with grant funding. You know, the club still got to raise. Well, currently it's 30% of that. Previously it was 50%. So the floodlights, as an example, were I think 70k in total. So we had to raise 35 grand of that. You know, so that's a lot of fundraising, and you know, a lot of race nights and donations and all the rest of it. But we got there, and because obviously the system that we had had basically been up for 1977, I think, and was knackered really. So, but the lights are graded, or were graded at the time of Football League, which was 350 lux. Obviously, the Football League have upped that now to 500, but we can actually upgrade ours to 500. Obviously, we've had them done before the Tottenham game in terms of new lamps and re-aiming, and now that they are the best they've ever been, really. So obviously getting more and more involved in the sort of heavy decision making and the strategy, if you like, in terms of hiring and sacking managers as well. I suppose that's the other one that I've been involved with. Not always successfully, but I think you appoint the person you think is the right person at the time. Nobody appoints a manager you think is going to fail, but it's not. I think sometimes you know, people think it's Championship manager, and especially with players as well. It's like, right, why don't we go and sign a striker? Why don't we sign a goalkeeper? It's not. Non-league football in particular doesn't work like that. It's not always that easy. Levels in particular play such a big part. It's not necessarily about money either. That, you know, you could offer a player the same as he's getting now in the Conference North, but they won't drop because the two steps further away from where they really want to be. And you know, the likelihood of them getting back to where they want to be. So yeah, players will drop a step. But you know, we've missed out on a number of players since we've been in step 4. But if we'd have been in step 3, we'd have signed. But that's the way it works. So, answer to your question, it was just sort of happened really, and you know, we'll see. I mean, I've no desire to become chairman. When Paul steps down, I will probably step down at the same time. That's likely to be in the next probably 3 to 4 years, I would have thought.
Wow.
But we'll see.
Is that as vice chair or from the committee in time, Dave?
Probably just as vice chair, because I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, you know, it depends who then becomes chairman. You know, I think James is probably favourite for that to happen. Somebody needs to rein him in, really. Keep an eye on him. So, you know, for 2 things, I haven't really got. I mean, I've done pretty much everything I want to do as vice chairman in terms of, other than the next step, which is basically win the league, really. And obviously we'll touch on that a bit later in terms of plans we've got coming up now. But it's you know, everything that I could write a book really, and I might do one day in terms of some of the stuff that goes on, you know, behind the scenes that people never see. Some good, some bad. But you know, what I will say is that everybody is involved for the right reasons. You know, they're on. The only people who get paid at the club, obviously, the players and staff, and the bar staff, basically. You know, by obviously, you know, bar staff, cleaners, and all the rest of it. You know, obviously they'll like to grasshoppers, but that's contracted out. But you know, all the committee and an awful lot of other people give up their time and money, commitment, really to deliver the best team that they can on the pitch. You know, I think go back to the Farsley, the relegation, and that was, you know, the worst day I've ever had in football by you know, it just you almost think, you know, because we should have gone down in the Great Escape season, really. And I think you almost become, it's never going to happen. We're bulletproof, you know. It's and really, you look back to that season, and we had something like, I don't know, you know, we took something like 2 points from, I think, the last 10 games. But you know, I think the big decision then, you know, and I think I you know, a lot of soul searching, thinking, well, you know, maybe it's time to pack in, and I wasn't the only one. But I knew if I did, we would probably end up losing Neil, and that was, you know, Neil. I wanted Neil from the start, and obviously got him. And it's not usually a good thing on your CV or as a career move if you get relegated. Really, you look at, and that's at every level, isn't it? You look at I mean, some have made a good career out of it, really, like Allardyce and managers like that, where basically, but it wouldn't have been too much of a step for Neil to have been sacked basically after we went down. But that was the reason I didn't go, because I knew that if I did, that's probably what would have happened. So
He glad when we beat Havens and we watch on telly and you had that celebration, glad you never did that. Now you had that moment, kind of,
Well,
obviously.
It was never, as far as I was concerned, it was never in doubt. He was then and is now the best man to lead us forward, and will take us to at least one, if not more, promotions. Obviously, we've committed to him 3-year deal. He's committed to us as well, because really he should be managing at a higher level. You look at players and people say, why isn't he playing a couple of divisions above? So it goes both ways. But yeah, I think when I'm going to tell you something now, when we'd obviously agreed that we were going to retain him, and obviously we had him in basically to tell him. Obviously, we told him obviously it wasn't that he was coming in for the bullet. He was coming in because we were going to retain him. So he came in and we had a chat, and then there was just me and him left in the room before we all packed in. I think it was I can't remember, it might have been a Tuesday or whatever it was. And I said to him that it was basically me mainly that wanted him on board. Well, not just me, obviously. And he said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "Don't let me down." And I said to him after the Tottenham game, when it had all calmed down, because they were all having a social distance beer at the time at the end of the game. And I said to him, "Do you remember when we reappointed you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you remember what I said to you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you didn't." But the next step now is, I'm not going to make any rash predictions, but everything is in place now. Whether we'd have got promoted the season before last, we weren't going to win the league. I think Workington had that pretty much sewn up. I think we'd have been in the playoffs. Maybe we'd have been promoted. It's one of them in the playoffs. You just, who knows? Last season, I think we'd have been thereabouts again. I think, we're starting to put a run together. Obviously, that was around obviously the cup run and all the rest of it. And of course, you don't know what's going to happen next season, whether we'll get a full season, whether there'll be more disruption again. We just don't know, really. So we've just got to look after our own fortunes and from the start, really. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the reorganisation, if it happens. I've seen a projected league, which I've got to say, if you gave me the choice between that league and the one that the likes of, I talked to the Clitheroe secretary today, and they'll be lumped in with obviously likes of Workington and the North East teams. If you gave me the choice between the two leagues, I know which one I'd pick. But you just don't know in football. And of course, you don't know whether that reorganisation is going to happen. and whether those are even the teams which have been moved to the, it might have been somebody who's done it in his mom's bedroom, who knows, I don't know. But so I think the big challenge for the powers that be around the reorganisation is clearly they want it to happen, and clearly no team is going to refuse being promoted.
Yeah.
Likes of a Brookes or Rylands or whoever, will take it however it comes. The problem arises is there are only so many promotion places to go around, and there's going to have to be some sort of arbitrary, well, team A are going up and team B isn't, and that's where they may have a problem, because then team B is going to be saying, well, why are you promoting them and not us?
Yeah.
We've got a bigger ground than them, or our pies are nicer, or whatever. So that's the concern, is it might never happen, because if you determine it on the field, then that's it, isn't it? Whether that's at the start of the season, if you say, right, if you play whatever it is, 3/4 of your games or 2/3 of your games, and then at that point it's a point per game. If the season doesn't finish, or we'll add the results from last season or whatever, then there's a clear, and if they say, right, well, the top two in all these divisions will go up, and then there'll be another 10 places, and that's on points per game across 10 leagues or whatever it is. Everybody knows the start. It's not then open to challenge, but we'll see. But plenty of local derbies anyway.
Can I ask, does putting a bar and hot tubs on the cross end of the road impact on our ground grading?
Well, it'll be something be a challenge for the players to try and get the ball in, wouldn't it? That would be.
If it doesn't impact the ground grading, we can probably wave it goodbye for a while, can't we?
Yeah, well, I think it's probably. I was just thinking whether you get many in there on the likes of Boxing Day, but no.
Oh, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll be us sat in there like that.
Yeah.
But we touched on it a few times, but as much as we've all done it to death a little bit, we've all heard about Spurs and Mourinho and crossbars enough. We just want to touch on the FA Cup slightly. Much more interested from your perspective as a member of the committee and as vice chair, just in terms of organisation and in terms of the amount of work you guys must have had to put in. What was it like to have that run through from your experience, and as being one of the lucky few that got to go to those games? Colchester away would have been such a good day.
Yeah.
Don't get Tottenham, Colchester away, night out in Essex would have been brilliant.
Yeah.
But interested from your perspective, what that was like from a committee perspective.
Well, obviously Colchester away. I think some of you may have read my articles in the two programs. Four levels above. I mean, they looking at them now. They have gone into absolute freefall since.
They have, haven't they? Yeah.
Oh, they're 4 points above relegation.
Well,
Sorry, Colchester.
Once Marina's touched you, nothing will be the same.
Yeah, well, I think if I put myself in their shoes, it's the way. Well, you probably think step 18 at home. Yeah, thanks very much. We'll have that. We'll it's almost a buy into the next round. But on the other hand, there's always back in my mind they're going to turn up and have a right good go, and dodgy goal, free kick, penalty, or whatever. Then you get knocked out.
It's a no-win situation for them, is it?
It's a lose-lose.
No-win situation, is it?
Yeah.
But it would have been. I mean, it is a fantastic setup that for a League Two ground would not be out of place in the Premier League. It's or certainly the Championship in terms of the setup. And obviously we'd have taken a lot down there. Obviously we would have been in one end or whatever. So it would have been a bit special, I think, when Mikey Howard scored. But I do think, I mean, I think I'm not 100% certain, but I think the home end is the end that the penalties were taken in.
Yeah, I've been there with Swindon in the cup, and they put us on a side.
Yeah.
So maybe they would have done that.
So I do wonder whether, given the fact that you'd have had, a significant number of home fans, I don't think they'd have been able to play the way they played with fans getting on the back.
Yeah.
And the other factor is that in the penalty shootout, pressure does funny things to players. With a load of home fans behind the goal, would we have scored all the penalties we scored? And you just don't know, do you? But it would have been an absolutely fantastic day as a fan, and that's what we were saying at the start in terms of the days out we had at the likes of Telford and Northwich, and then winning the league, and with some Morecambe, places like that. Shrewsbury, even despite the result, but those are the sort of ones, and I can tell you for certain, I'd have been sat in that away end.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been in the boardroom. But that, obviously, we had to be, and we were looked after really, really well, because obviously we had all the COVID stuff going on, but they gave us a executive box basically with fridges full of ale. So in the spirit of cooperation, it would have been rude not to have.
You got to indulge.
It would have been rude to have turned down the hospitality. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So we got well stuck into all that lot.
The fridges were empty by the time you left, surely.
Hey.
The fridges were empty by the time you left.
Oh yeah, well, we might have left a couple of bottles of I don't know. It might have been some cherry flavoured cider or something, but everything else was basically would already been sunk or was taken back on the bus. But that was fantastic, and then obviously having to own, which I think brought its own pressures, because nobody expected us to beat Colchester, but once we had, and then don't forget, Havant with a full-time team, massive budget for the level. Physically, they were all grocks. They were all man mountains. The centre half was something like 6'8" or something ridiculous. And I thought that's what might cause us a problem, because against teams that we were able to counter, be really well organised, we hadn't really looked like conceding. But I thought against them it might be a bit of an issue, because they throw it forward, put it in the box, and physically we're not the biggest side. But what do I know? Basically, just throw into an aisle in the 120th minute, and the rest is history. That was surreal as well, because it was almost in slow motion, because the ball came across. Obviously, Ravo missed it completely. Kind of, he connected. Probably would have ended up on Coronation Park. Missed it completely. Miley heads it back, and then I'm thinking, diving header, he's got to score, diving header. So he comes in for the diving header, misses it, hits him on the back of the head or the neck, and it just sort of looped up, wrong foot of the goal, and you're thinking, has it gone in? I couldn't quite figure out whether it had actually gone in the net or not, or whether the goal was going to stand for some reason. Because I thought Raven followed it in, but might well have been offside, but only actually touched it after it gone over the line, fortunately.
Yeah.
So, that was a bit special, because obviously that's the moment you're in the third round of the cup. It's only ever happened once before in the club's history, and then you think it's got to be a big draw this time, hasn't it? It's got to be. so obviously we'd gone through all of the stuff with getting the game on with BT Sport, and the draw obviously for the third round was at the ground. So the director who'd done the BT game or the BBC broadcast was there. So when the draw came out, he said he made a couple of phone calls. He said, I've already had London on. You know, they want a survey to see if the ground's suitable, basically for BBC. So I said to him, well, should be all right, shouldn't it? You just had Havant on the weekend and on BT. He said, yeah, BBC is about 4 times as big. If you think that the BT coverage was hectic, so there'd be about 4 times as many vehicles that they had. The BBC had for the Tottenham side, they had 130 staff at the game. That including obviously the presenters and so on.
Yeah.
But absolutely mad. But we had the drawer on in the committee room, and there was a bit of delay on the feed. So Neil and Niall had obviously been out and been interviewed. So I heard Marine comes out, and next thing I hear is this shout from outside, or something like that. Anyway, so I thought it's got to be a good one, and then the number came out. I didn't have a clue. I knew it wasn't Liverpool or Everton, and then Tottenham Hotspur. And at the time, I thought jackpot here. Right? It was a surreal moment. Tottenham at home in the cup. You're just thinking, wow, you know, after all of the pain and all the issues we've had over the last few years, that's the reward, really.
And the validation day for after relegation and the soul searching to get back, was that your validation?
I mean, I think you know, you never know, do you, what would have happened if we hadn't gone down on you know, we were whatever it was, I don't know whatever it was, 10 minutes from staying up, basically. Who knows what would we have ever ended up playing Tottenham in the cup? Probably not.
I feel we're in a better position now, even though we're in the league below, than when we was in that league, because I just felt we were just at that level where, as you said, waiting for it to happen, and then when it happens, you're like, oh shit, kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think as well, you know, I think what it did do is it really, you know, we've I mean, I wouldn't say that was solely the reason, but obviously, you know, in terms of how we do things and why we do things, in terms of the structure of the club, obviously, you know, James, as you know, was appointed CEO. I think it was before that. But really, that accelerated the whole sort of roles and responsibilities and structure side of things. You know, looking at new income streams, which obviously things like bringing the hospitality on, executive club. Obviously, that didn't really get off the ground much last season because obviously the COVID restrictions. But you know, I've got to say that commercially for the Tottenham game, James, because obviously we all concentrate on different areas. So mine there was some overlap, but mine was mainly COVID, obviously. But you know, James and Dave Thompson did absolute wonders in terms of the commercial side, and absolutely, let's be honest, milking it to death. Because, and that was literally in terms of Craven, the Cravendale on the front of the shirt as well.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I make absolutely no apologies for that. At the end of the day, any club at our level in our position would do exactly the same thing. And probably not as successfully as we did. You know, the obviously the the thing for the virtual tickets, that was James's idea, and that was, we thought, well, we might get 600 or 1,000 or whatever that might do it. And obviously that was as a direct consequence of fans not being allowed in.
Yeah.
That was obviously how that snowballed, but that was just unreal. I mean, even, and it got up to about, I think it was something like 18,000, I think, on the night before the game. And then we had a word with the BBC guys, the senior producer. Everything all right? Yeah, fine. Any chance you can get your presenters to mention the virtual ticket thing? Yeah, sure. I'll speak to Gary. And he did, and obviously then that was that gave it such a massive boost on the day of the game, and it went to the 32,000. But as from a commercial point of view, that as hard as it was that there were no fans in, commercially, it was the best thing that could have happened for us. Would I have swapped it for having fans in?
Yeah, you would. You want us there, Dave. You love us.
Well, I don't know, to be honest. I think it's such an amount of money in terms of that now that's given us a once in a lifetime opportunity to really, really build on that success. And if not luck, at the end of the day, we got to the third round on merit because of obviously the what we did on the field, and also partly because of what we did off it in terms of giving Neil the backing to be able to put the team together to actually get that far. So around obviously the pitch, obviously that's in for planning at the moment. We're going to invest significantly in the club room facilities in terms of I mean, really, the club inside, apart from a bit of a lick of paint and new carpets and so on, hasn't been touched for probably 25 years. So, a big revamp in both rooms. Obviously, that's to with some new big tellies and projectors in there. So obviously for live matches.
Can that then include the hot tubs?
Yeah, hot tubs as well.
Yeah, hot tubs. Yeah.
Tally. We're going to convert the dressing room just to no showers, just be hot tubs now.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, they did the original changing room facilities on the car park used to have a plunge bath, and apparently the both teams used to get in it. And they used to have the trainer basically would fill it with a jug, hot water. That was back in the day apparently. But yeah, but really in terms of the match day experience around the whole side of that, obviously to give us more income streams more regularly as well. But we're talking a big investment between obviously that and the pitch. So certainly the club rooms all be finished by the time we can reopen. Well, we can technically reopen the club now, but only externally, which doesn't really give you much in terms of not really any good for functions in terms of if you're having your 21st and it's pissing down outside or whatever. Sorry, I shouldn't say pissing. But then it's about sustainability really, because obviously, you could effectively, if you spend considerably more than you earn over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, well, that windfall from Tottenham is going to be gone. Effectively, you might well be in a higher division at the time, but if you then can't compete because you haven't got the income streams, then you're going to have a problem.
About where you started.
back where you started. So that's the whole point now, is to invest. Obviously, if we get planning for the pitch, which will be the beginning of June, it's going to be tight in terms of timescale to get it done for the start of the season. Confident we can do it. If it does overrun, we have got a plan B. We've agreed a ground share with Bootle, which will be a short term. But obviously, I'm confident that that won't be needed.
Yeah, got a bit more.
So yeah, it's obviously that was really the league wanted that, because the days of you can just play your first 4 games away and then catch up later on. But the league is saying no, you need to have an alternative home ground sorted out. So obviously that's what we've had to do. So let's see what happens. But yeah, it in terms of the whole setup, obviously, you'll see a massive change and a massive improvement.
Yeah, excited. We're so excited for it now in the future as well, aren't we? I was just wondering as well if I could open up the question about the build up to the FA Cup. If I could just pass it over to Ron while we've got him on as well. Ron, if you may or may not know, is the player liaison officer, the fan liaison officer. Sorry. So, Ron, how was it for you as well in that build up to the FA Cup?
Well, I think after the Havant game, I asked everyone if every year was like this, with it being my first on the committee. But apparently it's not. So
We're down-0 now, lad.
But I think going back to first I joined the committee last summer, but joined doing the supporter stuff the summer before, just after the relegation. And I feel like during that time, with a lot of the work the committee's done and James has done, it's kind of, I really felt at that time wanted to get involved, because everything felt like it was going to really motor, but back in the right direction. And so kind of the FA Cup run was like the cherry on the cake, really, in that it kind of things, everyone just sort of came together and everything just kind of worked. But kind of for Spurs, I think the build up, it was, for me, really, really sad that supporters weren't going to be there, between Christmas and New Year, and we were selling tickets. And at that stage, and we talked about knowing that as the rules stood then, that supporters could be let in, but we also knew that after Christmas we could well go into another lockdown, and we had to work on how it was then, although we knew that there was a good chance that it was going to change. And so I kind of, between Christmas and New Year, and selling tickets to members and people coming in, and kind of supporters in their 70s and 80s who've been coming to Marine for decades and decades, being really excited, and little kids of 8, 10, 12 being really excited as well. And it was we kind of having all that excitement to build up, but also in the back of our minds knowing that all these people coming through with all that excitement might not actually be able to end up in the match. And then obviously a few days later, that's what we found out. I think in terms of the finances, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but I think in normal seasons without COVID, the prize money and what we'd have gained from other parts of it would have been a lot higher. And the TV money as well. So I think it was sort of, it would have absolutely balanced out, more or less, in a normal year, and we'd had supporters in. I think from that, kind of people have been coming for decades, and young kids who are kind of, it's one of their first experiences of watching Marine. It was sad that they didn't get to see it. I think it was sad as well for players and kind of their families that, a lot of the squad are young and kind of in the first steps in proper kind of adult football in the first few years. And kind of think a lot of parents who've kind of taken them everywhere, watched them play in all kinds of places up and down the country since they were little. It was a massive, you kind of felt that kind of they missed out on that both the players been able to share it with the parents, and the parents been able to watch them play on such a big stage. So that was kind of a shame as well. I think kind of the run in the cup was kind of, it still even now feels surreal. I walked down College Road earlier this afternoon, and it still felt kind of surreal that it all happened kind of there. It's kind of it's all a bit bonkers. And I think
I don't think it'll hit me until I go back into the ground.
yeah,
I'd still, especially because I was so disconnected from it being down here. I don't think I'll actually process it properly until I walk back into the ground. It's really weird, isn't it?
it's bizarre. I think, and I remember like being the build up to the game, and I felt the same for Havant as well. That home game was that you're such a like one half of your nose. It's such a big occasion, and you feel that, and you feel the kind of the nerves and the excitement. But at the same time, when you go to football matches and that anticipation, everyone's kind of filing into the ground, and you feel that kind of sense of anticipation collectively. So it was really weird having a massive sense of occasion without a huge part of what makes it an occasion. And it was a really kind of surreal feeling in that sense that you're about to have these huge games and it kind of feels huge, but there's something huge missing as well.
Yeah.
So that kind of made it surreal. Yeah, it was just absolutely kind of bonkers experience. I remember seeing Dave after the after the final whistle went, and a lot of emotion came out, and then people gathering on College Road and kind of cars going past honking, and it was a bit sort of like it was like Naples after after they've won something absolutely kind of on College Road, and yeah,
that was absolutely nuts. The after the game when it was basically obviously getting the players out to get them on the bus and get them away. That was absolutely crazy. But I think all of that. I mean, I at the Tottenham game, obviously, I had a good chat with Dion Dublin. Spoke to very, very briefly Shearer and Lineker. Had quite a good conversation with Michael Oliver, of all people, at the end of the game, because they'd all parked at Merchant Taylors, and we had a shuttle bus, so obviously that was obviously flying backwards and forwards. So we were waiting for like 5 minutes at the end. So chatting to him about the game, and he was really, really clued up about. He said, "I think you'll play again now this season." I said, "Well, probably not. I've seen the league's probably going to be suspended and kiboshed and all the rest of it." But I think what he said that he'd really enjoyed it because it was almost back to his roots, because the difference with the referees is they've all come up through, all right, some of them get fast tracked and all the rest of it. But it's probably not that long ago, because he's only, I don't know, mid-30s, something like that. Probably not that long ago since he was actually refereeing at our level. So, that you're thinking, you have just been having a chat with probably the best referee in the country, so, but the second half, because obviously it was almost a bit of a training game really. It was obviously more of a damage limitation for us, and with having no crowd in, it was almost like watching a friendly. You didn't sort of get the feeling. There were the TV figures was something like I think it was 6.8 million. I think in this country, and worldwide it was something like 30 million people. It was absolutely crazy the numbers. But the FA coming for a lot of stick. Justifiably so, probably on some counts, but around as soon as the tie came out, it was clear from the start they wanted the game at Marine. Now you might be cynical and say, well, actually that's because they're going to get it on the telly, and it's the quintessential romantic FA Cup tie, isn't it? But it wasn't really that. It was more around. That's you as a club have earned the right to play the game at your home ground, and we're gonna do whatever we can to help you do that. Tottenham had one or two concerns, obviously initially mainly around COVID and around safety of the players, in terms of because as you're probably aware, coaches now. Players will arrive on a team bus. They'll drive literally into the ground through a pair of gates with stewards and police everywhere. actually decant the coach inside the ground and basically into the changing rooms and the tunnel and whatever. But of course, a different animal at Marine, where obviously they're going to be getting off outside and they've got to get in the ground. And of course, at the time, the assumption was there would be fans in.
Yeah.
So we had a number of discussions and meetings, but Tottenham and their safety people were really, really good around things like some practical advice, and obviously we had been getting changed in the Arriva suite, so we sort of had to sacrifice that, and we offered that to Tottenham, really. But other than that, around COVID, no. Obviously, all the paperwork was done. That was all done, dusted, signed off. We had to have 2 rounds of testing. We had one on the Thursday, I think, before the on New Year's Day, believe it or not, when we were due to play Prescott. Great, players will all be there. Club doctor, get them all tested. Job done. Of course, the Prescott game is off. We couldn't get the FA testers because they don't work on a bank holiday, and then there was an issue with the lab. So speak to the FA. So the FA said, let's get your club doctor to do it then. We'll send you the kits, because basically they're all little. So it's the swab test, up your nose and down your throat.
This is when we then have to drip it into the.
Yeah.
So
it goes into a obviously with the individual's name with the label on, obviously, and that goes off to London for testing, because it's a much more reliable test apparently than the lateral flow test.
Yeah.
So it's all got to be controlled in terms of all of that, because obviously they've got to make sure that the person whose name is on the sample actually is that person. So proof of ID and all of that. So we got all that done, and we had one player who failed, who was I won't obviously give names, because obviously, but it was a lone player, so he couldn't play. We then had the mandatory testing, which was on the Thursday before the game. It had to be done in a certain window, so many hours before the kickoff. And that one was by the FA appointed nurses. So they turned up on the Thursday, did the tests. So we had to get all the players done, obviously all the staff, or anybody like stewards who were going onto the pitch and the red zone, all that sort of stuff. Me, Richard, a couple of other people. And that's the nervous wake then, because anybody fails, they can't play, basically. And you couldn't sign, it was difficult to sign any players, because obviously registration deadlines, and of course the vast majority of players at our level are all cup tied anyway, because they've all played in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So we knew if we had an issue over a number of players, we'd have been struggling to fill the bench, and if it was a lot of players, we'd have had to postpone the game. And of course, the issue with that then is that we'd have lost the TV slot, which was the prime slot on BBC One. So we had to wait then till the Friday night for the testing to come through, and they were coming through in dribs and drabs. So I had the login to the website, so it had come up. So player's name had come up. Oh, great, right? Well, that's one of the midfield then. Okay.
I've got an image of like a big whiteboard, and you've got sort of names on little magnets, and you're going to a green or to a red.
Flash all the time in terms of, but we had, I think, 35 people tested. That's obviously with the staff and stewards and so on and so forth, and all of them passed, which at the time statistically was quite surprising. Really, we expected certainly a few to fail, but I think at that time then, the players trained on Saturday at the Liverpool Academy, Kirby, because obviously we told Neil obviously on the Friday morning, the Saturday morning, we had the official notification that they'd all passed. I think it was probably at that time where it became real then, because it was like, well, you've all passed the tests now, so you're all eligible to play in the game. But I've got to say, the players clearly look. Bear in mind, obviously, this is over the Christmas, Boxing Day, New Year period. That if any of them had caught it then, obviously by the time the symptoms come out, they wouldn't have been playing, and possibly might have taken out 3 or 4 other players as well. So they'd all clearly looked after themselves and obviously done what and I've seen a couple of interviews. I think was it Bailey basically said he didn't go out the house for something like Jay Devine didn't go out the house for 2 weeks. And when you think about it, of a lad of 19 or 20 to do that, and if you think as well, Tottenham had a number of positive cases just before. So yeah, I've got to take my hat off to the players really in terms of that dedication to the cause really, in terms of making sure that they did everything they could to get through the tests. So yeah.
I think I want to touch on is obviously when COVID hit, it's obviously something we've never experienced. What are like the financial implications? Obviously before this covering, and also like yourself, you go every game. So what's it been like for you, like not going to any games basically for so long?
Well, I think on respect to that, I mean, obviously I've been fortunate enough to go to all the games we've played behind closed doors anyway. Whereas really, as fans, I was thinking earlier today, I can't remember the last game where we actually had fans in. I know we did. We definitely did against Stalybridge in the cup, didn't we? And then with Southport, did we have fans in?
Yeah, we were there for Southport. Yeah.
Was that the? I mean, obviously, Boxing Day, City Liverpool, obviously as an away game. But in terms of home, I think Southport was the last game.
Yeah, I think you're right. Southport was the last one.
October, was it? Something like that? November?
Yeah, it could have been bordering into November.
Yeah, Colchester was the beginning of November, so that was when basically we couldn't have fans in. So, it's even worse from a fan's perspective, because obviously you basically all these touched on before in terms of what would have been great games to attend as a fan, and you've not been able to. I think certainly around some of the planning that we're doing for next season, obviously in terms of the team, in terms of the off-field stuff around the pitch and the club room refurb, obviously it gives you a bit more time that you wouldn't normally have, because obviously you're sort of dealing with your day-to-day matches and all the rest of it. But I think going back to when the lockdown first hit, and I think I said at the time, whatever happens as a club, we will come out of this out the other side for as long as it takes. So effectively, we pretty much mothballed everything. Stopped everything we didn't have to spend, because obviously you just don't know whether it might be, at the time, whether it might be 3 weeks or 3 months. But we're still here. We're obviously in a really strong position financially. Obviously the don't get me wrong, without the Tottenham game, we'd still be here, we'd still be in a good position, but not as strong as we are now. You know, and I think you move forward. You know, at the moment we think we're going to be starting in August, and obviously we just announced today that you know, last season's memberships will roll on. But who knows? You know, you might get to the autumn, and then, you know, there's another outbreak or another variant that they seem to, at convenient times when it suits them, and then you basically, you could be locked down again. Who knows? You know, but we have got obviously measures in place for that not to be a financial issue. Let's put it that way. I mean, hopefully, without any restrictions, I would think we will be getting some good gates at the start of next season. You know, I think what I think has hurt us is the momentum we had after Tottenham. You know, you think if we hadn't have had any restrictions, then we'd have had some 4-figure plus gates at the time.
That links on very nicely to what we're going to talk about next. Yeah.
One other thing I can exclusively reveal, and I'm surprised no one's asked me about the kit yet, by the way.
Well, hello, Sailor. Yes, please tell us.
So you're asking me what the kit's going to be next season?
Dave, what's
Exclusive reveal
next season?
Can't tell you.
Ah.
Well, I can exclusively reveal. This is like Miss in the old days. The away kit will remain as blue.
Oh.
We have changed supplier to Puma this year.
Yes.
Get me some sweet Puma. Me and Ads have had our problems with Macron. Get me some sweet Puma trackies.
Yeah, we like Puma.
I think, with Macron. Anyway, at home, Marine will be playing in white, black, and black.
Oh. Well, that was always the plan, wasn't it? Was to do the black and gold for 1 year and then go back.
Well, it was. I mean, I think the thinking was that because obviously there was a school of thought that we'd have stayed with black and gold, because obviously we haven't really played a full season with black and gold, and I certainly argue it's a lucky kit in respect of the FA Cup, and obviously, you know, we got relegated in the white one, but on the other hand, of course, when we were winning things left, right and centre in the 80s and 90s, that was always in white, black and black as well. So we're just in the process now of building the basic Puma setup up for you.
Yeah.
In terms of sales of shirts and all the rest of it, then
take my money.
Well, we're obviously hoping to be able to do all that online, similar to what we had for Tottenham in terms of the scarves and program.
I've got to say, I think that will make a massive difference, because we'll talk about that in a second about new fans after it. But a lot of my friends were sort of asking, well, where can I get this? And I want a pair of those shorts, those, and being able to just say boom, boom, boom here, made life a lot easier than being like, well, you'll have to maybe if you drive up and go to the club shop and things. I know Macron have been doing it for a while. Yeah. That makes life so much easier, and it'll be another income stream for the club as well.
Yeah. So just thought that.
We can put that on as the tagline on YouTube. Dave Mac exclusive news. Do it as like clickbait, get people in.
Live from Barbados.
Live from Barbados.
I was joking before at the palm tree, saying, they said they're on holiday, so I'm in Barbados with the FA. I've run off with the FA Cup money.
All you need is like a pina colada and a coconut.
Yeah.
Perfect. Right, sort of leading on. Oh, go ahead,
Dave needs you to buy loads of Puma gear to keep him there, to be fair.
That's why he's trying to sell it.
Yeah.
For next year's holiday to Cuba.
Yeah.
Come back with a load of cigars. But sort of, rolling on from sort of a lot of the stuff we spoke about. And this can sort of either go Dave, Grom, whichever one of you wants to jump into. I think in our discussions around the run and in the kind of stuff that I've seen, I think the biggest shame of it, as you said, Dave, is that in those weeks afterwards, we would have had four-figure crowds comfortably. We could have even been looking at 1,500, 1,800. You saw how many people came out, including people standing in their gardens, who, as we always said, where are they? Tuesday, Nantwich at home in the peeing rain. Where are they stood in their gardens then? But make you sound like the worst fella in the world. But in terms of bringing new fans in and engaging new fans, that's the perfect thing, isn't it? To be able to say, loads of people have seen it, loads of people would have said they would want to come. Is there any way that we could, that sort of any plans within the club or anything like that to try and whenever we're inevitably allowed to, hopefully at some point, maybe in 2072, allowed to go to a game again? In terms of building on that, in terms of not just building on the Tottenham stuff, but bringing new people into the club, engaging new fans. I imagine, Grom, that's probably slightly more your area.
I get what I'd say with fans and with everything that we're doing now post Spurs is that we didn't have Spurs and then think what we're going to do. The long-term planning for the club had already well begun, and that from the summer plans were on paper what we wanted to do. Kind of very much from James and people, and so it's and the question in the summer was, we want to do all this stuff, but how on earth are we going to get the money to be able to do it? When Spurs came along, it meant the money's there to do it, but we already had the plans. And so it's kind of a continuity really in that. And so we don't have the Spurs money going, how on earth are we going to spend it? What on earth do we do now? It was just made possible what we already wanted to do. And I guess from a supporter point of view, it's kind of exactly the same. So over the last couple of years, I think the kind of the drive, and certainly what I've wanted to do is to kind of make it Marine feel more open and just more welcoming, in that anyone can turn up on any day and can come and feel a part of it. And so that's kind of the journey that we've been on. And I feel like we've come a long way in that over the last couple of years, albeit 2 seasons that have been kind of curtailed with COVID. But kind of all the way through that, I think Spurs helped us to make a couple of big statements. The fact that we kept the tickets at £10, even though we were going to be playing kind of a Champions League level team, was a massive thing. You're going to be paying the same to watch Spurs as you would be if we'd have drawn whoever, and if we were playing Nantwich or anyone else in the
FC Wheelie bin.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't going to charge any more, and I think partly on the back of that is why the kind of the virtual ticket was so successful, because we didn't want that impression to be that we were going to fleece people who've been coming for a long time and have been there in the on those cold drizzly nights on a Tuesday, and they were going to be paying exactly the same for Spurs. And then now for us for keeping prices exactly the same, rolling those tickets over for next season, is that we want people to keep coming, and we want more people to come and kind of experience Marine and what it's like to be a part of it. And I think with a bit of success on the pitch, and hopefully the team can hit the ground running next year, that kind of when you get people in, they're coming in, they're enjoying themselves, when with the club rooms and all the investment there, with like allowing ale on during the games, and that kind of that trust there, that kind of openness, I think makes a big difference in that people just feel that they want to be a part of it. And some of that is dependent on results. If you win in games, that people want to come. But ultimately as well, if they have a good time, you tend to have a good time no matter what the result. Like if Marine win, lose or draw, I don't sort of go, well, I'm not going to come in the next time. There's a lot of people who sort of, when you can feel it does make a difference, obviously, the result. But
I think it's like Dave shaking his head going, I hate it when we lose.
But I reckon so I think that obviously we're competing with other clubs, but I think we're competing with other types of entertainment. So like, say if you're a family and so 2 parents and 2 kids, and either you're going to go to football, or you're going to go to the cinema, or you're going to go to a play area, and it's that you can come to Marine, like the mum and dad can have a little drink, the kids can sort of play around, there's that space around Marine, watch a bit of the football, but it's that whole kind of afternoon house. And I think post-COVID and with the kind of the investment in the club rooms, is that people can come and have a day out. We want to get it open earlier, get people in earlier, and keep them afterwards. And that's kind of what we're setting up the food to be like. We're going to set up maybe a happy hour to draw people in, and to be really competitive on price, especially early on in the afternoon. And those lunchtime games are always on BT, and the clubs have BT for years, and it's the young people to come in to watch it, to have their lunch, have a few beers, and then stay for the game. So attracting more people, but keeping people there for a longer time as well, and that kind of generates that atmosphere and feeling a part of something, and that's kind of where we want to take it.
Yeah, I mean, just
And hot tubs.
Sorry, Dave.
And hot tubs.
Yeah.
I've got an image in my Dave. If you could do some sort of cabaret style TV advert, I think that'd really draw people in as well.
We're taking the stages coming out of the club room, so Dave's performing days are firmly in the past.
Is he not going to do an Elvis tribute or?
Well, I can do the
well,
Elvis tribute, don't worry about
John
that.
Travolta really was more like it, but
Well, I
more
think
like it would be
that's
John, to be fair. But anyway.
We were just going to.
No, it's you know,
Go on, Dave.
it is exciting. I think you know, winning team always helps, but I think you know we're looking obviously we, you know, cap membership's the same, gate price is the same next season. You know, we haven't made a decision on the NHS offer yet, mainly around we just at the moment we just don't know what might happen. If there's no restrictions, we will probably keep it. But if we've got restrictions at the start of the season, obviously, as you're aware, we're limited to 400 last season. And basically, the clamour for tickets was crazy. And that's something else we'll be looking at as well, around cup ties and so on and so forth. But I'd expect that we will get a real upturn in memberships as well, because you know, given the issues over sorting out, well, you know, priority for tickets for Tottenham that we had, you know, in terms of how that was going to work, where it's a game, where it's a short, you know, a short notice cup replay for argument's sake, and then, you know, you've got demand which outstrips how many people you can have in. Your members are going to be your first port of call. You know, but after that, then it's extremely difficult then to be able to say, right, well, you know, Michael's been to 5 games, you know, Adam's been to 3 or whatever, because you just haven't got the time to sort that out. So, you know, and I think as well is that people forget that obviously in terms of resources, you know, most of us have got full-time jobs. You know, you've got to work it all around that sort of stuff. You know, and I think one thing I would say is that anybody who's buying a ticket through the Kaizen platform next season, make sure you put your proper. What was happening is people would get a ticket, or maybe, you know, it might be, I don't know, you know, Matt might say to Michael, hey Mike, do us a favour, get us one, will you? You're going online, do us a favour, get us one. So Michael might buy 2, they're both in his name. Now, you Matt then have attended the game.
No proof.
According to the records, you haven't, because he's bought 2 tickets, and that was a major issue that was coming out of the Kaizen platform, was that that's what was happening. So, you know, I think that's the advice I'd give anybody, is to make sure that the actual names, whether that be, you know, for yourself and your couple of your kids or whatever, they're properly recorded.
I do remember, because I was buying tickets for my brother, and when you've signed up and bought a ticket, you've got your own membership number then, essentially. So when you were buying tickets then in the future, it gave you the option of putting that person's name and number in for that ticket to be allocated to them if you're buying it on their behalf. So as long as you've got that information to hand, it can work, but as you say, you've got to have it to hand.
We're obviously looking into all of that around things like memberships as well. That actually, instead of it just being a card at the moment, it's got the QR code on as well in terms of, and that will also record then that that members actually attended the game. So we are
with Kaizen as well. I think having worked with them for a year and then working with clubs at our level for the past year, and that they've made quite a few improvements over the last few months to their platform. We met with them last week, and it's all becoming a lot more sophisticated, and we're learning how to use it better, and it will kind of, all in all, we'll kind of put a lot more through that. It'll become a lot more kind of technological like that, which will make it easier for people to go, and we'll have that better record as well of who's been. And I think for talking about kind of generating increased kind of gates, is that before COVID it was pay your tenner on the gate and we wouldn't have a clue who was there. Now we have data from Kaizen, and we can market it a lot better, get messages out to people saying tickets are going on sale for this game at whatever time.
Game before,
Is that something?
Exactly.
Is that something you're sticking with? Is after COVID, are you sticking with the cars? That protocol, like, or are you going back to like paying on the gate?
Well, I think that we haven't taken it. I mean, certainly cars will still be in place, because obviously the danger with restrictions is, as we've seen, they get brought in very, very quickly. I don't think anybody saw the last lockdown coming over. Oh yeah, you can spend Christmas with your family, blah blah blah, and then within a week, basically, we're all on full lockdown again.
Yeah.
So what will happen is, if there is another lockdown, it won't be a question of as from 2 weeks on Saturday, you can only have 400 in. It'll be right. Well, it's now Thursday. As of Saturday, that's it. So certainly that facility needs to stay in place in case restrictions get brought back in again. But I think, in terms of the advantages it brings, is obviously in terms of it's a lot less cash handling. It's quicker in terms of somebody coming in who might have adult concession, paying cash where then you're giving change. Obviously that slows things down for turnstiles.
And also, I don't carry cash anymore. I don't know whether it's just me or some of the younger generation, but I remember when I would go to Marine, we would have to make a point of stopping at the cash point on College Road before to be able to pay in. I never have cash.
So I think there is a debate ongoing at the moment as to whether we go cashless full stop. And actually that means even if there's no restrictions, that you would still buy your ticket in advance through Kaizen. And obviously then you present your ticket at the gate in the normal manner, an e-ticket or you print it off or whatever. That's I'm not 100% convinced about that, because obviously there's always going to be an element of people who might think, I might go to Marine tomorrow, not sure, see what the weather's like, and it might be a last minute decision. And of course that's far easier if you can just pitch up on the gate and pay cash. But what the other way you can do it is actually you can have the Kaizen system so that you can actually buy a ticket right up to kick off. So it's not a question of so there is that. There are pros and cons. But I think we'd have to go one or the other, because if you say, well, there is a cash turnstile, but all the other turnstiles are ticket in advance, then what's going to happen? Basically, you're going to get a massive queue at the cash turnstile, and nobody's going to be bothering buying tickets in advance. So there is a debate around that, really. But I mean, I would be minded to go cashless, to be perfectly honest. I think as well, the other thing we're doing in the club, we're putting new tills in as well. So those are obviously much better linked in terms of remote terminals for paying for your drinks and whatever, that you can pre-order, all that sort of stuff. So it makes more sense for all of that then to be to be linked in.
Yeah.
And I think the way I think football's likely to go, and society generally, is more and more. I mean, I never, before the lockdown, ever used chip and pin on my card, unless you're paying for petrol or something where it was 50 quid or whatever, and then you put your number in. It was always either cash, or I'd use the pin. Whereas now, I hardly pay for anything in cash. And I think that's probably. But you've got to recognise as well that some of our older members, it's
That's
all
what I
right
was gonna
for us
say.
basically, but some of our older people who basically will just pay cash. But in the future, you can certainly see that it's going to be cashless. That's the most clubs, I suspect, at our level and above. That's the way the trend will go, and I think most shops and whatever, cash will be pretty much a thing of the past.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you now from obviously Stewarton and Anfield. Anfield is now virtually a cashless stadium because of the benefits of you don't have to worry about cash. No one's going to come and rob a chip and pin terminal, are they? So you've got that worry taken off, and then it's stuff like the tickets. So all of Liverpool's tickets now will go to your smartphone. You put them into like your Google Wallet, and you use your phone then to get in. The NCR, isn't it? The what's called, and basically you just put that up against the scanner to get in. Which is essentially what we're doing now when we've been using Kaizen. So football at the elite level is going cashless now. As everything comes down, doesn't it? That's that sort of gravitational pull.
I think it's that people were coming through it's not kind of necessarily us saying, "Oh, this is what Marine wants." I think for the most part, it's the other way around. That people coming through the gate will expect it.
Well,
so
I would say I want it.
Yeah, exactly. When people are coming through saying, "Yeah, I don't want to have to go and wonder where I get cash out to pay to get in or to pay for my pint or whatever," then it's we have to be able to accommodate that when when people are coming in.
Yeah,
and it's been one of the unintended, well, we call it benefits of the pandemic from a business perspective. Obviously, in terms of all of that, we'd never have gone down that route. Who would ever have thought that you'd have all ticket games with a ticket basically that you download onto your phone and you scan it on another phone at the turnstile.
Yeah.
That would just never have happened. We probably wouldn't have even been looking at cashless because obviously around the tills it was cash obviously in terms of from a COVID perspective is a risk in terms of sanitisation and all that sort of stuff and giving change out and so on and so forth. You've also got to think of your staff around that as well in terms of actually it might be once for you, but they might be doing that giving change out 100 times in a day. So you've got to look at it from that perspective as well. So I think it's probably something that we will do because I don't think it's likely to have a significant detrimental effect on gates if we don't. So long as it's well publicised and inevitably the people that turn up that even the fact that it's been well publicised and we've been doing it for 3 months, you still get somebody that turns up and wants to pay cash because that's
Well, it's even if you can do it on Kaizen where you do it up till kickoff, I'm sure there will be people like me who are horrendously disorganised standing on College Road at 5 to 3 on their phone on Kaizen. Quickly buy my ticket, then I'll go and scan in. I've done it for events before in the past when I was at uni. You'd be going to an event or something, you just needed to download a ticket and pay your entrance fee or whatever. You'd stand outside having a bifter or whatever, and you go, okay, now I can scan in. I don't think it would, even if people don't realise it.
Yeah.
if you can buy up until kickoff, it can be quite easily amended anyway.
Will be a big benefit though to what you've done about before about doing like happy hours to bring people in early who may normally go to South Road or somewhere else. You know, if they're coming in early because they've decided that, you know, it's happy hour, I'll go down to Marine today. I'll go now because I can get a fairly cheap pint. Well, they'll know in advance as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of benefits if you can get the reasons to bring people in early to the ground. There'll be a lot of benefits.
In terms of being able to buy, you're taking people hand as well. And then I think, sort of, when you go into your working week, you sort of want something to look forward to at the weekend. So if Marine are playing, I think a lot of people will buy tickets quite early because it's like, oh yeah, I'll go to Marine at the weekend. That sort of, and they just sort of pencil it in, and so they will buy them early.
And also, if you've had a heavy Friday night, if you've already paid the 10, there have been plenty of times where I've been due to go to Marine, had a heavy Friday night, and gone,
yeah,
no chance. But if you've already paid the 10 quid for your ticket, it's just that little bit extra, right? Okay, I'll get myself out of bed. I'll have a shower, I'll go down.
I think being cashless in the through the bars and stuff as well, and if it's predominantly cash, you know, and if you're having a couple of beers, you tend to break notes more, and then you've got a load of change, and then you're trying to count it, and then you're like, well, you might be 10p short for a pint, so you can't get it. Whereas with your card, it doesn't matter if you're 10p short because it's just on your card.
yeah.
So I think people tend to spend a little bit more if it's cashless as well.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that because what tends to happen is that, you know, particularly for functions, people might go out and have X amount of money, and basically when that cash is gone or they're running enough for a taxi home, well, you know, they'll nurse a pint for the last half hour. But obviously, if you can just pay on your card, well, just have another one, won't you?
Yeah.
So, well, I would anyway.
Yeah,
Right,
well, that's you, Dave.
Do you want to wrap up then, Adam?
Yeah, so we'll wrap it up. Again, thank you very much, Dave, and even Ron as well for participating in it. Really enjoyed it tonight. Remember, if you like the Crescendo Way videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give the video a like, and if you want notifications for when new videos are uploaded, just click the bell as well. So thank you very much, Dave and Ron, for joining us today within the Crescendo Way. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
And up the manners. We'll see you in August.
Take care.
See you soon, boys.
Take care.